Hope you're all looking forward, like me, to this evening's event. I'm Paul Anticoni, Chief Executive of World Jewish Relief. In recent weeks, we've all been watching the news with increasing concern as Russian forces make their presence felt on both the Russian-Ukrainian and the Belarusian-Ukrainian border. Who knows whether the existing frozen conflict between Russia and Ukraine, now in its 8th year, will escalate further, and potentially with disastrous consequences. Whatever scenarios play out, our focus is, of course, on a Jewish community of about 200,000 people, and in particular, the elderly, many of whom benefit on a daily basis from World Jewish Relief support. We're also assisting Jewish elderly in Russia and in separatist-controlled areas in eastern Ukraine. So access to all the communities we help is really critical to us, whatever the outcome. In 2014, when the conflict first broke, our emergency response brought help to thousands of those both within and beyond the Jewish community. Talking to some of our local partner organizations in Ukraine just this weekend, I was reminded that even the chance of an escalation of the conflict adds fear, worry, anxiety, and uncertainty to many, in addition to the rocketing of energy and food prices and the drop in the value of the hryvnia, the local Ukrainian currency. It's a stark reminder of the critical role that we play in supporting the most vulnerable members of our community worldwide, and of course, an important backdrop to this evening's event. I'm delighted now to hand you over to Yalda Hakim, our fabulous star host for this evening. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to World Jewish Relief's Make a World of Difference 2022. My name is Yalda Hakim. I'm a journalist, news presenter, and documentary maker. You may have seen me in recent months reporting for the BBC from my homeland, Afghanistan. When invited to present this evening's proceedings, I didn't hesitate to accept. I've been so impressed by the incredible work of World Jewish Relief in their efforts to make a world of difference to the lives of so many people around the world. During the past year, we've witnessed devastating reports of global suffering. The Taliban takeover in Afghanistan, refugees risking their lives to flee conflict and economic hardship, the persecution of the Uyghurs, the continued impact of COVID-19 in countries where healthcare systems are crumbling under pressure, and climate-related disasters. At this sobering time, World Jewish Relief and its network of local partners are working tirelessly to address these challenges, focusing particular attention on the needs of vulnerable women, girls, and older people. Over the past year, World Jewish Relief changed the lives of 115,000 individuals in 21 countries. The scope of its work ranges from assisting elderly members of the Jewish community in Eastern Europe to supporting livelihood programs helping people to become self-sufficient, and also providing fundamental support to refugees fleeing conflict. World Jewish Relief could not deliver any of these programs without your generous support. To start the evening, we'll hear from poet, educator, MC, theatre maker Adam Camerling. Adam is a former UK Poetry Slam champion who's performed around the world, from the Helsinki Word Festival to the Glastonbury Poetry Stage and the South Bank Centre. Adam's grandpa came to the UK on the Kindertransport, and this heritage has greatly impacted on his life. Adam has written this poem to pay tribute to the Jewish values that underpin everything that World Jewish Relief does today.
My grandparents were serious about hugging. Greetings or goodbyes were practiced, precise. No arms looped wide so as to barely touch, and shoulder pats like testing a scone top. But a full body grip disappear you in chest. Nothing English about it, their welcome was practiced. Always an ice cream tub rattling kitful, each horseshoe sugar dusted and a challah in the oven. Rising, when I was old enough to lay the table, I would place precisely as I could each cutlery, each cup and jug, each mat, each chair tucked and set, each course its own fork and each fork its place, and around that table my place. And how many others tonight? My grandmother's approach to strangers was so wildly disarming as to confuse sometimes. I remember her asking a gardener in the grounds of a house a question about gardening, how he looked over each shoulder and then back to his weeding, and then up to grandma, and then over each shoulder again, and only then a smile, a reply. To comprehend such ease, I learnt to offer too much at entry, leave no one unsure. My grandparents lost too much in the war, and now there is always knowing how language is a bed you sleep soundly inside, how a family name is a house. We practice jokes like our signatures, and who better to tell than a stranger? So we set an extra place at the table, practice welcoming, like faith.
Thank you, Adam. Over the next 45 minutes, we'll visit Rwanda, Moldova, Uganda, and the UK to highlight just some of World Jewish Relief's efforts to assist many of these individuals. I'll be interviewing Chief Rabbi Mervis, and you'll be hearing from Morris Helfgott, World Jewish Relief's chairman, and Hilda Worth, one of its trustees. We'll also have a special guest appearance from world-renowned violinist Maxim Wengeroff, who'll offer a musical interlude. You can make a donation at any time by clicking the donate or pledge buttons on your screen. During the course of the evening, please feel free to use the chat function on the right-hand side of your screen to send a message to other guests and to share a message for the individuals whose stories you'll hear tonight. Like so many within Britain's Jewish community, the refugee story is my story. When I was 6 months old, my parents and I travelled on horseback over the border to Pakistan, escaping our home of Afghanistan, which was fraught with conflict. Seeking a better life and opportunities for their baby daughter, my parents never gave up hope. And after 2 years in Pakistan, we eventually settled in Australia, a country that became my new home, where I was given opportunities that I would not have had as a young girl in Afghanistan. In many ways, these opportunities led me to where I am today. My parents would often talk about the people who reached out to us with kindness in those early years as refugees in Australia. We didn't speak the language, we knew nothing about the culture, and not everyone welcomed us. But those who did helped us realize that one day this unfamiliar country might actually feel like our home. Their kindness has never been forgotten. World Jewish Relief has never forgotten its own roots. As an organization set up to rescue and support tens of thousands of Jewish refugees from Nazi-occupied Europe. Since August 2021, when 15,000 Afghans began to arrive in the UK, World Jewish Relief has sprung into action to address the urgent needs of the women and children confined to hotels waiting to be offered a permanent home. And since the Syrian refugee crisis hit the headlines, World Jewish Relief has welcomed more than 1,000 refugees who fled to the UK. Through its specialist training and employment program, known as STEP, it is the largest provider of bespoke one-to-one support to resettled refugees learning English and seeking employment. One of these people is Yanal. Here is her story, one of tragedy and loss, but also of partnership, success, and hope.
I think I'm a good mom. I escaped my children from bad circumstances. When the demonstrations began, everything is changed. I remember this terrible day. Many people in the street, voices, shouting, everything. Because my husband was Iraqi, he would be in trouble. We left Syria 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. We left everything. I just had my phone. We moved to Iraq. Unfortunately, the circumstances got worse. If you went to the street, somebody will kill you. That day, we had lunch, my children and me. I heard my husband's voice coming from the street. I went to see him in front of my eyes. In the middle of the street, lie down and bleeding. He died after 5 hours. And he died because there is no doctors. All of his family was screaming, but I still silent. They were surprised. Why you are silent? Why you don't cry? I don't want my children to know. I have to be strong. Every day I remember this day. I was in the kitchen and I received call. They said on 11th of September, you will be in UK. Nobody knows that I will be here. I don't want anyone to prevent me. The first month, it was difficult. I think just about safety, because I still for a long time looking for safety. I feel the danger will be anywhere. So when I arrived to my house, me and 4 children eat, sleep, do everything in the one room. All my children around me all time. I decided it's to be or not to be. I have to learn. The first time I met Tom, he was patient and speak slowly. He was supporting me a lot to improve my English, have confidence, to write CV, write cover letter, doing interview, many things. First job, I had an interview at 10:30. He called me at 8 in the morning to do training for me. I didn't think that I will get a job. But after 2 days, he called me and said, you will get this job. I was very, 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 very happy. World Jewish Relief supported me a lot. They make big, big, big difference. They just think about you as a human being. The people who support World Jewish Relief, they put their money in the right place. They do a great thing. Maybe they don't know, but we will feel. It means a lot.
I'm honored to be here with Rabbi Ephraim Mervis, the Chief Rabbi of the United Hebrew Congregations of the Commonwealth. Chief Rabbi Mervis is a great friend of World Jewish Relief and a passionate advocate for its global work. His leadership has helped guide the organization over the years as its remit has developed to reaching beyond the Jewish community. Rabbi Mervis, for many here in the UK, you've long been a strong advocate of social justice, fairness and charity. I suppose the big question is, what drives you and who inspires you?
So first of all, Yalda, lovely to meet you and welcome to my home. And it's such a lovely opportunity for me to have this chat with you. I didn't one day sit down and say, what are the policies of my life going to be? What you're talking about is integrated within me. It's been a part of me all the time. And I guess what has contributed to the person I am has been a combination of, this is a Torah way of life. This is a result of the home within which I grew up, plus the fact that my childhood was spent in apartheid South Africa. And I benefited from a challenging environment within which I grew up, which certainly contributed towards the person I am today.
Help us to understand that responsibility a little bit more, because the past year has been incredibly difficult and challenging for so many people here in the UK. Lives and livelihoods have been lost. People have been dealing with a pandemic, yet we've seen displacement, suffering, conflict, poverty outside our shores. What is the responsibility of the Jewish community and, charities such as this to those people?
It's complex and it's challenging, enormously challenging. But there's a lesson of the pandemic itself. The pandemic doesn't differentiate between people of different genders, colors, faiths, races. The pandemic doesn't recognize borders. And as a result, we're all on the same side. If only all of our societies would take on board that message and that lesson. It is natural at a time such as this that we are turning inwards, because it's me, it's my family, it's my community, my society. And we do, of course, need to prioritize the local scene. But together with that, we will only see an end to this pandemic if we provide a global solution through the vaccination drive. So the pandemic is teaching us about the importance of looking outwards. And that comes right to the heart of what World Jewish Relief is about. You know, looking after senior Jewish citizens in Eastern Europe, providing employment opportunities for refugees, responding to the natural disasters that occur from time to time.
So then, in short, what does World Jewish Relief mean to you?
It means Judaism. It's central to our ethos as a people, as a faith. You know, in the Talmud, the great sage Ben Azai taught that the most important principle of the entire Bible is Genesis chapter 5, verse 1, which tells us that every human being is created in the image of God. And as a result, we naturally should feel for the suffering of all people, and that should encourage us to do something about it. There are a lot of people who have the right feelings, but World Jewish Relief helps us to act on our feelings and to do something about it.
What do you see as the greatest challenges for the year ahead? And what do you think World Jewish Relief and the community can do to help?
I'd identify three main challenges that we're aware of. Who knows what else might arrive on the scene? This is an age of deep challenges. The coronavirus is still very much with us, and please God, we should only be healthy and we should move forward, and we shouldn't have to tackle new variants. The second challenge is the climate crisis. And the third is friction within our society. By and large, we are losing our touch when it comes to what in Jewish circles we call a machloket l'shem shamayim, an argument for the sake of heaven. Instead of debating, people are fighting. There's deepening polarization. This is leading increasingly to conflict, and the result of conflict is poverty and disaster and human suffering. And World Jewish Relief actually is central in all of these areas, in providing help to people during the coronavirus at a time when human suffering has been deepened. Tackling climate change, I'm so pleased that World Jewish Relief has responded to one of the great challenges of our time and is including tackling climate change as an essential plank of what it does, because it naturally fits in to what World Jewish Relief is all about. Because tackling climate change is about caring for others. You know, in the Midrash, which is an anthology of Jewish teachings from 2,000 years ago, the great sage Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai tells a tale of a boat on the high seas, and people have paid for their seats to travel. And there's a man who's drilling a hole underneath his seat because it was a hot day and he needed some water to refresh his feet. And all the other passengers said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I paid for the seat. I can do what I want." And they said, "But don't you realize you're going to cause us all to drown?" And I think that's a fair description of where we are today. What I do in my home has a direct impact on whether islands, somewhere or other in the world, might be covered by water within just a few decades. We all have a responsibility to care for everybody all around the world in tackling climate change, and it's now central to what World Jewish Relief is about, and I'm so proud of it.
And I think the other thing that World Jewish Relief really does, and the climate issue you've touched on, but also working with refugees and people who have been displaced, and really looking beyond the community, working with all of humanity. And in the same way, helping thousands of Afghan refugees who have come into this country and other parts of the world, who have been forced to flee and leave their home and country. And when I've spoken to many Jewish friends about why they have reached out and why they want to help, they say, we understand that it's not just our responsibility, but we also understand what it means to lose your home, to flee, to become stateless.
They've given the right answer. We know perhaps more than any other people what it means to be on the road, to be homeless, to be looking desperately for a safe haven, for a country which will take us in, looking for work, looking for dignity. And I think we just naturally do it. And one of the most poignant moments of my chief rabbinate so far, I'm now in my 9th year as chief rabbi, was a visit to Edemeni on the border between Greece and North Macedonia. I went to see some of the World Jewish Relief projects, and I took a number of my senior rabbis with me. We were so immensely proud of how monies raised from our Jewish community, from generous people, were being used magnificently, for example, through the establishment of a mobile medical unit to save lives there, through handing out halal sandwiches, portals for the charging of mobile phones. You know, I could see myself, the 21st century refugee is somebody who hasn't had food to eat for 4 days, but has a smartphone. And that's the reality of life. And I visited at a time when up to 10,000 refugees were pouring through that area every single day. And for a Jewish organization to be there on the front line, to provide such life-saving help, is a memory I'll always take with me, together with my sense of pride as to what we as a community were doing thanks to World Jewish Relief. Something that I'm missing out on right now in the pandemic is the annual World Jewish Relief dinner. For me, it's always one of the highlights of the year, to be in a room with people who are motivated to help, who are not just there to have a good time, but you feel something very special in the air, that here is a Jewish community that cares and that deeply wants to do something about human suffering out there. And I really look forward to post-pandemic times when we can have the dinners again. If World Jewish Relief didn't exist, we would need to create it. And if right now we would try to create it, we would never be able to create something as good as what it really is. It's something the British Jewish community is immensely proud of.
Rabbi Mervis, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Yalda.
Thank you, Chief Rabbi Mervis. Your endorsement of our work inspires me and so many others to express our Jewish identity so demonstrably through World Jewish Relief. Good evening. My name is Hilda Worth and I am a volunteer trustee for World Jewish Relief. I am a daughter, a mother and a grandmother. Family is really important to me. Every generation of my family brings something unique and special to my everyday life. The World Jewish Relief family reflects these very same values that spans time and generation. There are 4 standouts for me. 1, a history of Jewish rescue in the 1930s and 40s that makes me incredibly proud, and a set of archives that if you haven't already searched for family members in, you should do so now. 2, a fundamental commitment to meet the daily needs last year of exactly 10,809 elderly Jewish individuals in their autumn years in Ukraine, Belarus, Moldova and Georgia to live out their lives with dignity and respect. 3, the amazing statistic that over 13,000 Jews, many of them single mothers, have passed through our Back to Work programmes across Eastern Europe, with over 70% of them finding work. And 4, the expertise, energy and focus that World Jewish Relief is now bringing to the climate change crisis that affects all the contexts within which we work, recognising the urgency to ensure a younger generation has a future to look forward to. As a trustee, I am aware that World Jewish Relief cannot help everyone, everywhere, all the time. We have to make hard and difficult choices. Yet World Jewish Relief is one of those few charities to be bold in its decision-making, to support communities that are invisible or that others have either forgotten about or simply cannot reach. As this evening highlights, you have to be inspired by a Jewish organisation that goes out of its way to welcome refugees into our midst, to respond to those displaced by conflict and war in some of the most horrific locations, or to be a champion for the needs of women and girls across all that it does. And yet, at its core is a deep-rooted promise to assist a vast number of elderly Jews in places that many of us cannot even pronounce, to survive the winter, to survive an inadequate pension, to have a warm, safe home with hot water, to be less alone and afraid, to hold each of their hands and enable them to be part of a Jewish community that we have helped rebuild. This is non-negotiable. It is what we and our network of local partners do so well. COVID, old age, a creaking healthcare system, conflict, rampant inflation, dilapidated housing, all conspire against us. But just as we never stop asking you for support, so we never stop supporting those that don't even ask. That is the power of kindness, the thread that holds the World Jewish Relief family together. I hope this short film from Moldova, telling Tatiana's story, illustrates the amazing impact of our work. Thank you for listening.
Что самая большая на свете роскошь – это роскошь человеческого общения. Если этого ничего нет, он может от одиночества просто заснуть и все. Я родилась после войны в 1946 году. Дедушку с бабушкой у меня уничтожили здесь, в гетто, в Кишиневском. Мама не успела. К сожалению, мой отец умер, когда мне было 2,5 года, после ранений, после войны. Вот. Жизнь после войны была сложная, голодная. В 7 лет поступила в музыкальную школу. Не заставляла меня, потому что мне это очень нравилось. И она сказала: это твой хлеб, твои руки – это твой хлеб. Он тебя будет кормить всю жизнь. Вот это любовь к музыке. Я была концертмейстером хора. Работа просто удовольствие. Для меня она была в радость. В Хеседе я давным-давно в волонтерском центре я играла на пианино. Понимаете, жизнь как бы остановилась, и в душе такой страх, что сердце леденеет, просто леденеет. Это невозможно, это смертельно страшно. Это из-за ковида, из-за этой напасти, из-за этой беды. Это невозможно выжить. На 2000 лей невозможно. Да, Хесед нам помогает, интересуется нами, звонят, помогают и материально. Во-первых, сразу же нам дали все средства индивидуальной защиты, и маски, дезинфектанты, да. Нам приходит патронажная, помогает, вот. И уборочка, конечно, я тоже соблюдаю всю эту чистоту и все, но помощь нужна. Даже просто поговорить, пообщаться, увидеть лицо: здравствуйте, я пришла, я говорю: ой, хорошо, что вы пришли, все, да, а что мы сегодня будем делать? И мы план строим, или пойдем в поликлинику, или будем готовить, или будем продукты, там много дел дома есть, очень много дел дома есть. И так по всему миру катастрофа, а если еще помощь прекратится, это очень тяжело нам выжить. Я уже говорила, быть в одиночестве очень страшно. Чтобы мы жили, старики, немного лучше, немного, чтобы мир был добрее, вот чтобы это было все в радость, да, в радость, в радость.
It now gives me enormous pleasure to welcome Maxim Wengeroff, universally hailed as one of the world's finest musicians and often referred to as the greatest living string player in the world today. The Grammy Award winner also enjoys international acclaim as a conductor and is one of the most in-demand soloists. He also devotes much of his time to teaching and working as a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador. We're truly honoured that he has agreed to join us this evening.
My dear friends, I have great pleasure in taking part in tonight's event. Having grown up in a Russian Jewish family in Siberia, I understand only too well the challenges of being in the minority, of being different to those around you and needing to be strong and work harder than others in order to achieve and excel. I was very lucky to have a wonderful family to support and encourage me. And when I moved to Israel at the age of 16, to be embraced with open arms by a new country and a new community. It is a tradition of my family going back many generations to help others, to try and build bridges and provide opportunity and hope to those who face conflict and uncertainty. I am deeply moved and in awe of the work that World Jewish Relief is doing, caring for vulnerable older people and giving a younger generation the greatest gift of all, the tools to find work, earn a living, and build and sustain their own families and communities. Have a wonderful evening, my friends. Thank you.
Over the past 10 years, some 22,000 people have benefited from World Jewish Relief's employment programs, giving participants the necessary training and support to become self-sufficient and no longer rely on handouts. The program is primarily focused on those living in poverty, displaced by conflict, unemployed, or living with a disability. Participants experience a fundamental shift in their self-confidence, enabling them to transform their lives. Employment rates for graduates of these programs, particularly in Eastern Europe, are outstanding. During the past year, World Jewish Relief has helped nearly 3,000 people to find work. From single Jewish mothers in Ukraine to young Jewish farmers in Uganda and genocide survivors in Rwanda, each individual has benefited from the patience, kindness, and expertise of our partners. World Jewish Relief's work in Rwanda began in 2007 in response to the 1994 genocide, in which 1 million people were killed in 100 days. The Rwandan population experienced great trauma as they struggled to rebuild a peaceful society in the aftermath of this atrocity. The Jewish community knows only too well what it means to survive genocide. For the last 13 years, World Jewish Relief has worked in Rwanda, using its expertise in helping people to rebuild their lives and livelihoods to support a young generation of Rwandans into a brighter, more hopeful future. One of these young people is Felician, only 28 years old and responsible for caring for his family, including his disabled father who suffers chronic health issues and his brother who struggles with addiction. Felician's life has not been easy. Since working with World Jewish Relief's partner, Saka, Felician has found purpose, self-confidence, and the ability to transform his life and his future, and that of his family. Here is his story.
Amazina nitwa Sebugeni Felicien, nkaba uru rugo turimo ari rw'iwacu, nkaba mbyarwa na Siraguma Fideli na Mukabideri Aureli. Ntabwo byari byoroshye nk'uko mumubona, navukiye mu muryango ukennye, umuryango w'abana 6, abahungu 5 n'umukobwa umwe, ariko gusa umubyeyi umwe kugira ngo mwamubonye w'umupapa, abanye ko afite ikibazo cyo kuba amugaye. Ndayusa nabyitwayemo neza, mbasha kwiga, ndasoza na kaminuza, icyo cyane cya kaminuza, ariko nza gusoza mbura akazi. Nyuma yaho nibwo naje guhura n'umubyeyi Saka, baramfasha amafatira training cyangwa short course. Nahigiyemo amasomo atandukanye, nahigiyemo isomo bita stride, nigiramo isomo ry'igikoni, nigiramo na saving account. Mu byo nabashije kwigiramo uyu munsi, ndi umukozi wa Silent Hill Hotel, bitewe nabwo bamenye nakuye muri Saka bijyanye n'isomo ry'igikoni. Mbere y'uko menyana na Saka, ubuzima bwanjye bwari habi kuko nta imibereho yaba kuri famille yanjye ndetse nanjye muri rusange. Nari wa muntu utabasha no kwibonera ayamutunga cyangwa se ayatunga umuryango. Ariko uyu munsi umuryango wanjye ubayeho, tubasha kubona icyo kurya ndetse tukabasha no kwizigama. Iyo ntagira amahirwe yo kumenya na Saka, nkeka ko ubuzima bwanjye bwari kuba buri habi. Ndashimira umuryango wa WGR ku bufatanye na Saka wamfashije kugeraho nikura, nkaba hari aho ngeze nk'umwana w'umunyarwanda, ndetse ko nkanifuza yuko wafasha urubyiruko ruri inyuma yanjye kuko uduha icyizere cy'ejo hazaza nk'abana b'Abanyarwanda.
What a wonderful, uplifting film. Good evening, everyone. Like many of you, I have long respected World Jewish Relief's mission, addressing poverty, responding to disaster, helping people make a living for themselves. Danielle and I have always enjoyed coming to the annual dinner and learning about World Jewish Relief's work here, at home, and around the world. And we're always happy to make our modest annual financial contribution, proudly participating in giving as a collective Jewish community. But in the 12 short months since I've had the privilege of serving as chair of World Jewish Relief, I've seen up close and personal the extraordinary capacity, professionalism, and real impact at every level of this very fine organisation. Of course, I knew that we responded to humanitarian emergency appeals. In 2021 alone, we responded in 13 countries, including Haiti, India, Nepal, Ethiopia, Nicaragua, and, of course, Afghanistan. But I never realized that it's because of years of planning ahead with trusted partners in 9 vulnerable geographies that we were able to respond when needed through our Disaster Preparedness Initiative. I've long been proud that in 2016, World Jewish Relief was the way the British Jewish community stepped up to help refugees fleeing to Britain from the terrible conflict in Syria. But I had no idea just how closely we work in partnership with Her Majesty's Home Office, and that today, in 16 different locations, World Jewish Relief is the largest single provider helping refugees get back to work in the United Kingdom. And of course, personally, I've always known that our origins were rescuing tens of thousands of Jews from Europe in the 1930s, and that we have never forgotten the suffering of elderly and impoverished Eastern European Jews, often themselves Nazi victims. But I had no idea just how thoughtfully we adapt to their specific needs and ensure that they are warm and safe, not isolated and alone, and that they can live out their autumn years with dignity. In those 12 months, I've learned just how much talent and determination our professional team, our partners, our trustees, our committee members, and our volunteers put into running an extremely effective and efficient organization and in serving our thousands of clients with hugely positive and sustainable impact. I recently joined World Jewish Relief colleagues in Turkey to visit a project we established specifically to support members of the Uyghur community who had been driven from their homes in East Turkestan by the brutal campaign of surveillance and persecution of their community in China. I met 2 remarkable teenage twin girls, separated from their father, who, if he's still alive at all, must be among the more than 1 million Uyghurs incarcerated in the notorious web of government education centres. The girls were alone, destitute, without basic rights, and facing profound uncertainty. But they were also brimming with youthful optimism, determined to face their future with hope and confidence. As we chatted together, I couldn't help thinking about my own father, Ben, who I'm so very, very happy is here with us tonight, Dad. He was also just 16 when World Jewish Relief brought him and 731 other orphan refugee survivors to the UK in 1945 after the Holocaust. He was also supported to learn a new language, to get some schooling, to gain the confidence and community he needed to rebuild his life here after having lost everything and almost everyone he knew and loved. I told the girls Dad's story and how moved I was that I could meet them as a representative of that very same World Jewish Relief. I quoted our magnificent CEO, Paul Anticoni, to explain that back in the 1930s and 40s, World Jewish Relief helped refugees like my dad because they were Jewish. Today, we help refugees because we are Jewish. It was a poignant moment for all of us, and I don't mind admitting that I shed a few tears. Of course, it's only with your active generosity that we can help those in need. And this year, World Jewish Relief and our partners have a colossal task ahead. We anticipate that we will need to reach at least 115,000 people in more than 20 countries at a cost of £6 million. Our thousands of Jewish older clients in Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia, and Belarus remain isolated and incredibly vulnerable, entirely reliant on us to keep them safe and warm, to provide food and vital medical care, as well as friendship. We are seeing the biggest refugee crisis of our times. Climate-related disasters and armed conflict are, unfortunately, on the rise. World Jewish Relief must prepare to respond to the unexpected at a moment's notice. You know we can't act without you. We rely on your loyal and generous support. So I'm asking you to please give generously tonight so that we can be there for the thousands more Yanals, Tatianas and Feliciens this year. For too many people, the pandemic has had a terrible impact on their life, their health, their finances. For those of us who have been fortunate not to have suffered too much, we can help those who have been less fortunate. Please enjoy the pleasure and the privilege of giving as generously as you can. Thank you.
Our world teeters on a knife edge. COVID rampages through Jewish communities in Eastern Europe. Conflict continues to displace millions from their homes. Persecution and injustice create ever more victims, while women and girls suffer the most. Climate extremes batter those already living an uncertain existence. For those on the margins, life has become ever more desperate, as if living in poverty was not enough. Our Jewish community centres are silent. Our warm homes have gone cold. Vaccination rates are pitifully low. Isolation and loneliness, the bitter pill of protection. Those we had found jobs for are once again without income, their children at risk, parents desperate. The road to safety for those fleeing war is perilous and fraught with risk. Families split, lives ruined, lives lost. Never before has World Jewish Relief's actions been more relevant to so many. Our history has taught us never to give up. At times of disaster, the World Jewish Relief family is at its best, focused, determined, courageous and together. Our network of 60 local partners provide global solutions to local problems. They are the true heroes. This last year, our Jewish elderly clients have required more home visits and medical support than ever before. We are proactively encouraging vaccination uptake and bringing technology to break the silence for hundreds. Our arms are wide open, welcoming refugees to the UK. Hundreds are benefiting from our employment support. Our assistance to Afghan families, young girls and children is critical while they wait for a home. We've brought help, safety and support to the Uyghur community in Turkey, helped 2,847 Jews to find work and fend for themselves in Ukraine and Moldova, enabled 2,170 Ugandans and Rwandans to rebuild their livelihoods, brought food to those abandoned in Afghanistan and on the Belarusian border, prioritised the needs of women across all our work, and reunited family members through a historical journey within our unique archives. Our climate response grows as we help communities cope with and adapt to changing climate patterns. Our emergency teams have been active in Haiti, the Philippines, Afghanistan, Kenya, Ethiopia and Bangladesh. Last year, World Jewish Relief assisted a remarkable 115,299 people. Your generosity has been inspiring. By helping those within and beyond our Jewish community, we put into action the sacred values and obligations that unite us as a people. But the task ahead is vast, and we cannot do it alone. Our resolve is undiminished, our commitment without compromise. Their struggle is our problem. Our support is their future. Help us, help them. Please be generous.
Tonight, we've been on a remarkable journey to meet just a few members of World Jewish Relief's global family. We thank Yanel, Tatiana, and Felician for sharing their stories with us. Through my work, I'm exposed to the best and worst of humanity. Tonight, I'm so proud to have been offered the opportunity of highlighting the work of an organization that shows the best of humanity. An organization that offers kindness and compassion to those in need, no matter what their religion, race, or creed. An organization that truly makes a world of difference. If you haven't already done so, please donate now via the donate or pledge buttons on your screen, so that World Jewish Relief can continue its proud history of offering employment support to vulnerable and displaced people, leading the Jewish community's response to disasters, and making sure that no older Jewish person in Eastern Europe is hungry, cold, or forgotten. Please help make a world of difference by giving generously. Before we end the evening, we'll be joined by the Jewish community of Uganda, who will offer a special farewell. Thank you and good night.
Zena, 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 abarukula no hayali, barushaba. Hena, 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 abruha bena benuha, benushaba. Zena, 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 abarukule na zena, 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 zena. Anu, 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 efani kula no kaftore, bamoki. Banu, 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 letra kula no ketore, kunesoki. Zena, 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 abanu kula na zena, 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 zena,